Welcome to the Boosting Business Breakthroughs podcast, where coaches gain the confidence, motivation, and expertise to make their next business breakthrough. I am your host, Lori Young, certified master marketer, business growth coach, and all-around truth teller. Breakthroughs can come with flashes of absolute clarity, sudden shifts in mindset, learning new skills, changes in habits, or anything else that changes the course of your coaching business. So if you're ready to be inspired and break through to your next level of growth, let's go. Okay, so welcome to episode 2. I am so excited because today is our first interview style podcast. First one was just me by myself, and I can definitely say that I am much more excited for this because I feel like this type of podcast episode is a lot easier to record. Today, we are going to be talking about mastering your visibility. Now, visibility is the cornerstone of any marketing plan. And it doesn't matter if you are a new coach or if you are a coach that's been around for a while. Mastering your visibility is so key and so important if you want to build your business brand. Whether it's your personal brand, your business brand, visibility is right there up there. So I am excited because I have the queen of visibility with me for sure. But I want to do a formal introduction of Susan Barber. She is an author, a podcast host, their value, and be seen for their true talent. Susan is married with 3 children and lives in the Chicago area. So welcome, Sue. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And why don't we just start out, because I'm really curious, how did you go from being a corporate IT director to a visibility coach?
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, Lori. I'm excited to be episode number 2 for your
Yes,
new
me
podcast. So thank you for having me.
Uh-huh.
It was actually a little bit of a situation with my company. They decided to merge. And
Okay.
when that happened, I had already been getting my coaching certification at night, thinking it was a good plan B for the future.
Mhm.
And that just had to get accelerated a little bit. I knew the culture of the company was going to change a bit from where I really wanted to be. And so I thought, okay, it's time. Maybe we should consider leaving. We've been there a long time, which
Mhm.
is scary. I
Right.
think for
Very
anybody
scary.
who's been at a company for a really long time, it's hard to leave.
Mhm.
And then I thought, what's the hardest thing I could do? What's the most scary? And that was to start my own business. And I really wanted to help people learn how to be visible, be great leaders, and learn some of those lessons that, it took me a little bit longer to learn. I wanted them to learn them faster and accelerate their progress and really leverage their potential. And that starts with visibility. You have to be out there and talking about the things that you're doing.
Yeah. So a little bit of background for those of you that are listening. Sue and I have been working together for, oh my gosh, maybe almost 5 years. It's been a while.
At least, yeah.
And so we handle her content marketing plan. And I can definitely say I have seen Sue's transformation over the last 5 years, from just being a coach, an executive leadership coach, to literally being the visibility coach. Like, that is what you are known for. Your podcast is all about being visible. Your book is all about being visible. Like, tell me, why visibility? Like, what is it about that just makes you show up every day and want to help more leaders become visible?
Well, it was definitely a challenge that I had in corporate. I thought I was being visible, and then I kind of got the tap on the shoulder that said, hey, you're great, but you're not being as visible as you should be. And I realized that I was dealing with a lot of imposter syndrome. I was working in IT, but did not have an IT degree or a lot of experience in IT, but I felt like I was doing great.
Okay.
But I just wasn't willing to put myself out there further. And that was because I was afraid that, I might fail.
Right.
And so being able to sit at the table with executives, being able to, make sure I'm doing the best things for my team, I don't know, I was hiding. And so I didn't really realize that until someone told me, because before that moment, I was considered a top talent. I was thinking I was getting promoted. I had all of these envisions of what was going to happen. So, I had to set off on this journey to learn how to do it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I taught my team and I taught people that I mentored. And then when I left the company, it actually showed up again. And I
Ah,
thought, oh, wow, I don't know how to run a business. I've never done this
right.
before. I've never
Mm-hmm.
been a coach before. So all of that showed up again. And I was not expecting that. I thought, I've already figured this out. And so I stayed home and I wrote, did all the things to build a website. And I made business cards and I spent time figuring out the name of my company, all the things that don't get you a client.
Right, right.
So, in my head, I thought you have to be credible, you have to do all those things. But I realized that that was just another form of hiding. And so
Mm-hmm.
the more I put myself out there, I started getting on podcasts as a guest. I started to work on my book. I started to do things that really pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I did that, I realized it's not as scary as it seems. It just feels scary before you do it. So it's the thinking behind doing some of these things that holds you back. Actually doing them is probably not as scary at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Right. So you're on a kind of a mission to help people overcome a lot of the fears that you had and belief systems that you were living by, not knowing it, and helping them to get out there and shine their light.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah. And what's interesting about, being in the world of entrepreneurship is, and I kind of use this analogy, I hope it resonates for the listeners, but I thought of myself as a coach who had to have a business.
Okay.
I didn't think of myself as a CEO of my business.
Right.
And there is a very different mindset when you
Mm-hmm.
think about yourself that way. And it took me probably 3 or 4 years before I really thought that way. I just only focused on, well, I'm a coach, not that I'm a leader of this business and really where I
Right.
want it to go. So it's a definite mindset shift that I think all people have to make. And my identity was tied so much to my former company that I had
Right.
to learn how to reestablish an identity for myself of people wanting to work with me and why they would want to work with me, and talk about the
Mm-hmm.
value proposition that you have. So all of those were big pieces for me that I had to work through and really start showing up in a bigger way.
Speaking of like value proposition, I, I'm always talking to my clients about, what is your unique selling proposition, right? Because this is, there are, I don't even know how many coaches are out there. There's God knows
Many,
how
many,
many
many.
coaches, God knows how many digital marketers, God knows how many doctors, God knows, I mean, there's so many of everything. It's a very, very noisy world. Tell me something that you feel is like unique about you that makes you like stand out and gives you like an edge as a coach.
Hmm. I when I speak at companies, when I coach people, one of the things that a lot of people say about me is that I'm very vulnerable
Mm,
and I'm willing to be open and share the stuff that maybe other people wouldn't be super proud of.
hmm.
I feel like I try to be as genuine and authentic as I can. And it took me a long time to be that vulnerable. And so I'm happy to hear that now, because I definitely wore my corporate suit of armor for a really long time.
Right.
And I knew that the book wouldn't be as great if I didn't start finding ways to talk about those things that didn't go so well and that I
Hmm.
wanted people to learn from, and what I learned from those things. So vulnerability, I think, is something that a lot of people will shy away from because they probably feel like it's going to make me not look as credible, maybe not as a person that someone might want to work with. But I have
Right.
found it to be the thing that people come to me because of that.
Right.
And I'm really happy about that, because I think I want to be that person for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that makes you human, right? It's like, oh, wow, she's not just like this, visibility coach that has mastered visibility and she's out here, the expert. And like, it's like people can say she's a real human being.
Mm-hmm.
She, struggled before, probably struggles today. She can relate to me. I can talk to her because she understands. That to me, I think is a huge unique selling point, is to
Mm-hmm.
be vulnerable, to be authentic, and to be able to relate to human beings, because in the end people want to work with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to work with somebody who's not the same person that you saw online.
Right.
And I think that is what most people say. Oh, you're just like, I envisioned you to be when I watched you on videos, or it's just
Hmm.
like you're talking when I read your posts. And that's what I would want them to say. I would never want them to
Absolutely.
say, like, you sound like somebody else. I don't know who you are.
Exactly.
That's not good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the whole premise of this show is boosting business breakthroughs. And, for me, breakthroughs come in so many sizes, so many shapes. It comes from there's just so many different things that can create a breakthrough for you.
Hmm.
So, what I want to ask you is tell me about a business breakthrough that you've had. It could be a mindset thing, it could be something that you decided to do differently, whatever, and just tell me about that and how it changed the course of your business.
Well, it's interesting because it relates to you in some ways. Because, when we first started working together, I didn't have a book. I didn't have a podcast. I didn't have all the things I have now. And we started putting out content because I wrote a blog every day for,
Hmm.
many, many, many months. And we would write that blog and put that out. But then we put other content out by other people.
Hmm.
And
Oh
that
yeah, I
worked
remember
because
that.
I didn't have anything else. But it took until somebody was saying, well, this is really great that you're putting all this stuff out there, but I haven't seen your videos. I haven't seen your picture. I was again hiding.
Hmm.
And it took me that moment of, okay, if you want people to know about you, you have to be out there. So that's when we made that switch to say everything that goes out there, for the most part, maybe 99% is from me.
Hmm.
My words, my quotes, my pictures, my video, all of that stuff changed. And I feel like it just elevated the brand of what I was trying to build.
Hmm.
And I also feel like it built that, know, like, and trust with people,
Hmm.
because they could see me, hear from me, all of those things that, we were trying to get to. I just wasn't quite ready in the beginning. And I wanted to have my thought leadership out there, but putting a video out there or a picture of me just seems so scary. If I think back on it now, it's no big deal. But right at that moment, that's where I was. So
Right.
this is an
So.
evolution. So I
Hmm.
think it's consistency, intentionality behind what you're trying to build, and know that you don't have to get there overnight.
Yes.
That, me writing all these blogs has been so tremendously helpful.
Hmm.
I can repurpose things. I can, update them. I can use those for podcasts. I can use those for, a future book. There's so many things you can do with it. So if you're someone who can put out a lot of content, just know that you have to also do video and your picture and be consistent.
Right. Right. Yes. So now you have, it's like I said, I have seen the evolution myself. And now there's, as a team that's, helping you with your repurposing of your content, there's so much to repurpose from now, not just the blogs, but your book, your podcast, your videos, like
Mm-hmm.
there's everything, like you are out there now, you are
Mm-hmm.
visible. So it makes
For
it a
sure.
lot easier to
Okay.
help you and to maintain that consistency. And that's the one thing I want to say about you as well is you have done an amazing job at being consistent. Like it's consistently writing a blog, it's consistently posting on social media 3 times a week, it's consistently doing your podcast, it's consistency. And a lot of times I see coaches giving up. They'll try, social media or videos or whatever for a couple of months. They're not getting the immediate visibility or the sales that they're wanting. And so they give up, or it
Mm-hmm.
becomes difficult and they give up. And visibility is one of those things that it's ongoing. Like I have been writing blogs for years. And yes, people find me from my blogs, but I've been writing them for years. If I had written blogs for a couple of months, nobody's
Yeah.
finding my blogs.
No, especially now. I mean, there's so many people out there, and when I first started with you, probably a lot less people than there are now.
Oh,
They didn't have their
yes.
own businesses. They didn't have podcasts, as many podcasts that were out there either. So there's all of this stuff now that's kind of in the way, right? If you want to stand out, you have to find a way. And I've had people even look at my social media and, they always say the best things about what you guys are doing because it's consistent. It's my brand, it's my colors, it's very consistent. And anyone who looks at it can see what the topic is that I talk about, what are the things I care about. And, all of those things are coming through the consistency, not only of what I'm doing, but I think what you guys are doing as well to help other people see that same thing, no matter what kind of content I'm putting out there. It's very consistent.
Right. But I think what is important to know is it's your voice. You've worked on having a voice in this marketplace through your book, through your podcast, through videos, through blogging, it's like you have a voice.
Yep.
So let's talk about just this whole notion of mastering your visibility. Let's talk about maybe it's a new person, a new entrepreneur, new coach that is out there and they don't know much about marketing. They don't know much about building a brand or building a visibility. Where would they start?
I think you kind of go to your strengths. So I don't know that I knew I was someone who could write, but I tried it, right? I think you have to experiment a little bit. So maybe you're somebody who's good at video. Maybe you're somebody who's good at speaking, somebody who's good at writing, whatever you feel like your strengths are. I would start there because it's much easier to be consistent and stay with it if that's true.
Right.
But in terms of visibility, two things actually helped me. And like making a video was super scary. Going live was not easy for me. So I created my own Facebook group where it was just me. And I went live. Cool. I went live in there and just tried it because I thought I have to know what I'm doing. I don't want to, make a fool of myself here.
Right.
And so it was really easy to practice. And then when I went live in my Facebook groups, it was easy. Everybody thought, oh, wow, that's so great. But there is some practice sessions in there. So if that helps you.
That's awesome. That's an awesome idea.
Yeah, get comfortable with video. That's a great way to do it. And the second thing is kind of a little bit of a mindset thing. One of the people I interviewed on my podcast said, I struggle with visibility. And what someone told me, and I thought it was brilliant, is how can you have a party if you don't invite anyone? And it really got me thinking about how can I have someone want to work with me if I'm not putting what I'm doing out there? Like, what am I serving for dinner? What are the services I offer? Like, I'm not telling people about that. How are they going to know that they might be somebody that is great for me to work with and they don't know anything about me? So it really did help me think about, those moments where I may not want to put something out there or it's a little new for me and there's some doubts in my head about doing it. I'll say, this is your responsibility now. You have this huge mission to create visibility for other people and help them do it. You also have to do it for yourself. And that may mean it's uncomfortable, and that's okay because it may be brilliant. Maybe people love it, but they don't know about it. How are they going to ever try it? So I sometimes have to give myself a little pep talk, to be honest with everybody. It's not as easy for me. I'm a more introverted person in general. And so trying to do things that ease me into it a little bit helps me. And it just allows me to put out great content and allows me to try things that maybe were very scary for me 5 years ago. And it's gotten easier.
Yeah.
It does get easier.
So I can totally relate to, I know you well enough to know that you're an introvert. I'm an introvert as well. And, in terms of my own visibility, I've been blogging for forever. I have been doing social content like forever. But I realized that there's a missing piece to my visibility, and that was connecting with other people. I had to get out from behind my computer and get out there and start meeting people. It's scary. So just talk to me a little bit about what tips have you used to kind of overcome introversion and getting out there with your visibility as an introvert?
The thing that I struggled with as an introvert is when it's large groups. So large groups, networking events. I wrote about them in the book, how I would, go hide in the bathroom for a little while before I had to go into that room of all those people because it was overwhelming for me. But what I realized through that experience and even, in the world I'm in now is if I can just have a one-on-one conversation with people, I just go into curiosity mode. I
Mm-hmm.
literally will just go into, tell me about your situation, tell me about how you got here, because people want to talk about themselves, honestly.
Right.
And I want to know more about them. Like maybe they could be a good podcast guest for me. Maybe they could be a potential client, or maybe they're just somebody that's really great to know, that I can
Mm-hmm.
refer to other people or connect them to other people. So I really try to go into every conversation without pressure. I think as entrepreneurs, we tend to put pressure on ourselves and say, oh my gosh, I have to get this person to work with me. And all of that, they can feel that.
Yes,
So I
absolutely.
literally go in with no agenda other than to get to know them, maybe share some things about me. And then in the midst of that, I will usually make a call in my own head about, yeah, I think they'd be a good podcast guest. I think they'd be somebody I could connect to somebody. And I'll just share that with them. Like, hey, are you open? I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to, connect you to somebody I think you'd be great for. And people are doing that for me too. So the more people you get to know, obviously your network is growing all the time, and
Right.
it's never a bad thing.
Right. Yes, I had that same experience. I reached out to someone that I've been following on LinkedIn for a while. She was a sleep coach.
Mm,
And as a fellow insomniac, sometimes I was like, "Oh, this is so good. This she would be a great podcast guest." Because entrepreneurs they struggle with insomnia. We get
mm-hmm,
stressed, and I thought this should be great. And you know, thankfully she decided to have a call with me, and we got to talking about this. She's telling me about Podmatch. She's telling me about other podcasts to listen to. I mean, it was a great conversation, even though she told me my coach said I can't be on any podcast unless it's in the top 10% of podcasts.
oh,
So she declined me, which that gives me an incentive to become in the top
just
the
got to
top
get there.
10%.
Right. You just got to get there.
Yeah, but it was such a great conversation. And so you're right. You can't go into every single conversation, every single interaction that you have with someone as I want to make this person a client, or this is the goal that I want with this person, because you never know what's going to come out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it just takes all the pressure off. You just have a better conversation.
Yes.
And so that took me a while. I mean, in the beginning, of course, I was, trying to get clients. So, I
Right.
probably showed some of that. But I think over time, you also learn and grow as, someone who has their own business, and you realize not everybody is a great fit for you either.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, I've tried to think about, some of the people I'm talking to, they're auditioning for me just as much as I'm auditioning for them. And so
Absolutely.
we have to be a good fit for each other. Otherwise, it's not going to work anyway.
Absolutely. Agreed. So, another thing I want to talk about with visibility is I think that some people probably struggle with not wanting to brag or like shine a light on themselves because they view it as bragging.
Mm-hmm.
How can you be visible, be confident out there, and be known as a thought leader without bragging or feeling like you're bragging?
Yes, this was definitely a challenge for me. It's all in the book because I didn't want to be visible at craft because I felt like that was bragging, and that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of my role models at that time. I only saw people who bragged and they got rewarded for it, and I just didn't feel good to me. So that's why it took me a while to figure out how to do this in a way that worked authentically for me. But I guess I want you guys to think about a couple of things. One is you're just sharing information. You're just
Mm-hmm.
sharing information about what you're doing. So, no different than I would share with Lori about something I'm doing or my neighbor. I'm just sharing information. But you find ways to strategically put it into conversations. So, if I was going to say, I have this new product that I'm putting together, this new service that I'm putting together, it's going to be so great. I'm so excited about it. Well, who's not going to ask me more about it when I say it
Mm-hmm.
that way, right?
Right.
But I'm not bragging about it. I'm just sharing something I'm excited about. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when we try to put these parameters around it that it has to be a certain way and we have to say it a certain way and do it at a certain time. I just try to think of ways that I can talk about the things that are maybe going to be meaningful for someone else to be a part of. And the more you can do that, you get to a place where it's very comfortable to do that. It's no different. When I was a coach, learning stuff in the coach classes, it was, hey, when a waiter comes up to you and asks you if you want dessert, he's not forcing dessert upon you. He's just saying,
Right.
would you like dessert? You're doing the same thing. Would you like to hear more about this product? Would you like to hear more about coaching? Would you like to hear more about this service? So if you approach it that way, it's very different than I think a lot of people consider. Maybe people consider it like sales can be scary and sales are pushy, and that definitely wasn't me either. And so
Right.
I had a story for a really long time that I'm not good at sales. Okay, all evidence to the contrary now, right? But it's the story I told myself. It wasn't the truth. So check in on the stories that you might say to yourself that keep you from talking about the things that you're doing. If you have a story that I'm bragging, well, then you're going to hold yourself back from talking about those things because of
Right.
that. So
Right.
those are, it's hard to know that until someone may say, hey, I think you're great at sales. Oh, you do? Oh, I had no idea. It's hard to see that. We have blind spots,
Right.
and someone may
Right.
need to help us with that. But that was part of my journey, was to learn all of those things and recognize that you can talk about things and you're just making an offer. And if they want to be a part of it, great. And if they don't, that's okay too. There's
Right.
7 or 8 billion people in the world. So
Yeah.
there's someone out there for you.
Right. I one of the things that I like to tell clients, and I even tell myself, is you are selling a solution or a transformation to somebody. Someone has a particular problem or a particular need that they need a solution for. And you may or may not be the solution. So why not approach it from that mindset of, I just have a solution for you that may or may not work for you, right? I'm not selling you something. I am off. It's like, to me, it's a spirit of giving. Like, I don't know. I just feel like in this world, everybody has like these unique talents and these unique services and unique offers that they can offer to one another.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need it and sometimes we don't, right? If I hire a house cleaner, like, she has a unique service that I need. The convenience, taking time, so that I don't have to do that myself, right? Not everybody is going to be interested in that service, but that doesn't mean that her service is not valid, or it doesn't mean that she shouldn't be excited about the fact that she helps people like clean their house so that they don't have to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's one other side to this that I think might be helpful to people. It's definitely been helpful to me, is that I think sometimes we are afraid to put something out there because we don't know if it's good enough. And when you don't feel like it's good enough, the doubts, just come a running into your brain and just say, oh, stop. You don't want to do this. It's too scary. But if you truly believe in your product or your service, and you talk about it in the way I just talked about that earlier, and excited, and I'm passionate about it, and I can see the benefits it's going to bring to you. I really try to operate in possibilities, and I try to paint that picture for people. Like, what if you did this and you got, blah, blah, blah promotion, or you got 5 more clients, whatever it is. They need to know that somebody believes in them. And they need to know that you believe so much in what you're selling, whether that's your service or your product, that they kind of can feel that, right? If I just
Right.
said, I have this product, it's okay. I don't know if you'd like it or not, but maybe. Well, who's going to be wanting to buy that from me? I don't sound too excited about it. Why would they get excited about it?
Right.
So
Right.
there is a part of that I think, you have to fall in love with what you're selling a little bit too,
And
to have that come through.
You do have to believe in it, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think, kind of like you said, one of the things, I read a blog, by someone, I think her name was Becca, and it was about imposter syndrome. And as I was going into this podcast, of course, like, all kinds of imposter syndrome showed up. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing, Lori? Like, why is anybody going to listen to you? Blah, 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 right? So of course it, piqued my interest. I saw this article that she wrote. And what she talked about was oftentimes it's not really imposter syndrome that's showing up. It's really inexperience.
Yep.
And I thought, that's very interesting, because when we are first starting out with something, so when you're first starting out to master visibility and it's something that's new to you, of course, like all kinds of imposter syndrome is going to show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And until you become familiar with it and you start mastering it and start seeing, okay, it's not so bad. This isn't so bad. This isn't so scary. Then that imposter syndrome tends to kind of melt away until you start something new, a new kind of visibility, or a next level visibility. Then it's going to show up again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It hates action. Imposter syndrome hates action. Mm-hmm. And so if you can try to find ways to even take small steps of action, I felt much the same when I started my podcast. I don't know, even though I had everything ready to go and it was just literally getting it across the finish line, it still felt scary. Like, I don't know. I haven't interviewed people in a really long time. Is this going to work? What am I going to say on my own, solo podcast? It's definitely, it takes some time, but I like to think of them as experiments. Mm-hmm. And the experiment may work and the experiment may not work, but maybe I learned something from it to do something different. And I have had plenty of those. And I think it's just being okay with knowing that it's not going to be perfect. And so I really try to operate with imperfect action now. I call myself a former perfectionist. I think there's definitely some tendencies in there still. Yes. I remember one time I put a blog out and I said, Lori, you've got to pull it back. I think I have a typo in there. You're like, oh, okay. I mean, nobody probably would notice that typo. It was so long ago, but I remember that moment of, I can't put this out there. It's not perfect.
Right.
But now I've definitely let that go. So I think it's important that you try things. Don't be afraid to try things, but also know it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay.
Right. We have a saying on our team, and if like a mistake happens, I mean, trust me, we strive for excellence, and so we try really hard for everything to go out, darn near perfect if we can. But once in a while, we're human, we make mistakes, and instead of beating ourselves up about it, like, oh my God, how could we do that? It's like, no babies or small puppies died. It's okay.
So I love that.
Yeah. So yes. Like it's not earth shattering. Yes, yes. There was a typo, whatever, like no babies or puppies died. So we're good.
We're good. Yes. Yeah. We used to say that at Craft, even like my old boss used to say, we're making food here, people. We're doing IT stuff here. We're not holding preemie babies in the hospital, right? Which is a huge stressing job there and filled with anxiety.
Exactly.
So, I think it is about perspective, right? You don't have to be perfect, but as long as you're taking action, it helps you kind of push that imposter syndrome and those feelings of doubt into the background.
Right. So walk me through, let's say a client wants to work with you. They want to increase their visibility. What does it look like to work with you? Like, what do you guys kind of work on? Like, where do you start? And, just tell me a little bit about your process.
Just at the beginning. I usually try to understand what's happened for them so far. Sometimes it's I had my performance review, it didn't go well. Or I've been trying for 3 years to get promoted and nothing's happening. So I really try to understand like what the current state is of where they are. A lot of times I'll do a Hogan assessment on them. Hogan, I found, has been very helpful because it looks at not only how you see yourself, but how others might see you. And once you know how others potentially could see you, it's not perfect, right? We're not asking anyone else, but it gives you something to explore and say, maybe this is holding me back. And so trying to understand what the blind spots might be, trying to understand what could be holding them back. What's interesting to me is over the last, 2 to 3 years, I've started to recognize it's about the things that they're saying to themselves and then what they're saying to others. So if they're saying in their head, I'm not smart enough for this, I'm not good enough for this, well, that's coming out in their language to other people and how they show up. So I've spent a lot of time like helping them understand personal brand. I spend time listening to them talk and trying to call out for them where they're using language that's maybe not as supportive of themselves, and that other people are feeling that and probably don't see them as confident then.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are things that we start to work on. And then over time, we just continue to push different ways of taking actions towards visibility. I don't want them to feel, like they're going into the ocean immediately, right? I try to take baby steps with them, and let's come up with 3 actions that you're going to focus on. We try to really help them see who they can be and
Mm-hmm.
really focus on that person, like what their personal
Okay.
brand is, what they want to be known for, what do they want people to say about them. And then we focus on that because that's what is going to take them there.
Yeah. So say just a little bit more about personal brand because, this podcast is most of the people listening here are coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every coach out there should have a personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
What goes into that personal brand? Like what makes up your personal brand?
I think it's how people see you, some of the strengths that you have, your values.
Mm-hmm.
I do a personal brand class, and I think there's 2 different perspectives. One is how you see yourself first, and
Mm-hmm.
then one is how you present yourself to the outside world and what you want people to say about you. And I think a lot of people will tend to make their personal brand very career focused or very business focused. It's only about this. But what we're trying to do is build an emotional connection with someone else. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
even say, tell me about other things. Like, are you someone who travels? Are you someone who, does something, you're a workout maniac, right? You're a wine person. Maybe you're a sommelier, whatever that is. Try to let people get to know you as a person just as much as they're getting to know your business, or if you're coached, like what the kind of coaching that you're doing. I think there's a somehow people fear that and they don't want
Mm-hmm.
to include that piece, and to me that is what makes a difference. What I talk to people in the class about is I want people to read these 2 or 3 statements and know who you are without even meeting you.
Mm-hmm.
That is how, like, you have to be very specific with your words, but that's the goal. And
Right.
if you can do that, what's fascinating is in the class, I'll have people read each other's and they'll read them out loud. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's totally you. But it takes them some time to get there because our comfort zone is to stay small when you're doing something
Mm-hmm.
like this. It feels scary.
Yes.
And so I try to push them to think about a bigger way of saying that. What if you think about this? Or what if this? Or I'll say, is that person right now? And they're like, yep. I'm like, okay, then it's not big enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's not big
Okay.
enough. So
I like
it's,
that. Like making your brand not only personable, but big enough.
mhm.
Like not so that you're not playing small.
Yeah, because you're only going to grow as much as, you're trying to be bigger. If you have a
Mm-hmm.
small, I kind of think about it as small thoughts make a small business, right? Big thoughts, big goals make a big business. And you
Right.
have to push yourself out of your comfort zone to get there. And even, a leader in a company has the same thing. If you want to get promoted, you have to think about, what does that mean? Where do you want to go? How far?
Mm-hmm.
And most people use words that are smaller because it's
Mm,
safer.
right.
And I don't even have to meet them, and I can tell when they read it to me if they're playing too small. I can just
Right.
tell.
Right.
So I'll just ask people at the table. I did an event at a company, and I said, everyone at that table, is that who she is already? They're like, yep. I said, okay, got to go back to the drawing board. I need some bigger words from you. And they all walked away like, oh my gosh, like I
Right.
never thought about it this way. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to help people see the importance of it from a visibility angle, but just also who they want to be and how they want to show up.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Any like final like words of wisdom that you would want to share that you feel like we haven't covered on
Mm.
visibility and mastering your visibility?
I think the best thing I can say to people is that this is a journey,
Mm,
and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
okay.
I have definitely felt that. I've had this company now for 7 years, And, I try to not compare, because some people are ahead of me, some people are behind me, and that's okay. I just try to trust my intuition about what I think is the right thing to do next, and have conversations with people. And I guess I want you guys to feel that that's something you can do too. There's no right answer. It's whatever success means to you and how you define it. And it's taken me a while to get away from that, because being in corporate, you have a certain, like a financial number or a certain level in an organization.
Right.
And those things were things that were ingrained in me for a really long time. So just this year alone has been about slowing down, has been about being open to what shows up, focusing on gratefulness, focusing on everything that I can do to help people in the best way, and just sharing value. That's really what I focus on now. So it took me a little time to get there, and I know that may be true for all of your listeners, but
Right.
I think it feels so much better. It's not the
Yes.
rat race of running around and being busy all the time, because that just
Right.
burns you out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like that. Visibility is a marathon. And it's so true. Visibility is a marathon. Like it is. It's not a sprint. And it's a marathon up and down hills.
Yeah. There's
Right?
not a straight path, for sure.
No.
I
there
definitely
isn't.
had my ups and downs, and it doesn't end. So
Right.
there's no finish line to cross, but just know that the more you learn, you're learning every day. So just incorporate
Right.
those learnings and trust that you're going to do the right things for yourself
And
and your
enjoy
business.
it. And
Yes.
enjoy it. Right?
Yes, for sure. 100%.
Okay, so now I just want to ask one final question, and then we will let the listeners know how they can like reach out to you, or get access to your free little chapter of your book.
Mm-hmm.
But because I like to make this fun, tell me a book, a podcast, or a show that you are binging right now.
Wow. I was trying to think about this. I have two different things I was thinking about. So I just finished this book all about gratefulness, which has been amazing, because I really
Okay.
wanted to focus on that this year. It's called Magic, by Rhonda Barnes. So
Magic.
some people may have heard The Secret. She wrote
Okay.
Magic.
Okay.
But the entire book is about gratefulness, and every day you do a different thing. And it really forces you to think about gratefulness in a bigger way. But
Okay.
from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I listen to the Kelly Roach Show a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because she is very good at sharing information, what's happening in her businesses. She doesn't mince words, and I think everybody needs to know the truth, right, about what's really
Mm-hmm.
happening. So I learned a lot from her podcast and what she shares, and try to incorporate where I can in what I'm doing. So hopefully those are two
Awesome.
good ideas.
Good. Okay. So Magic and the Kelly Roach Show.
Yeah,
I will add those to my list for sure.
perfect.
So if you are wanting Sue's help for your own visibility, you can go to her website at www.susanmbarber.com. You can also look her up on LinkedIn at Susan M. Barber. And on her website, it's kind of off to the right hand side. You can download the first chapter of her book, The Visibility Factor.
Yes.
Great book if you're working on your visibility this year. If you also want to listen to another podcast, you can listen to
Yes.
The Visibility Factor, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. We talk about
anything else that you want to add to that, of where people can find you? Or
Nope, you've highlighted the places where I hang out the most, for sure. Yeah, yeah. So if you on my website, you can sign up for my blog, so that comes out every week, if you're interested in receiving that. And yeah, you can go and download the chapter. There's also a summary on that same page if you want a summary of the book. So you're more than welcome to download that, just to get a sense of what I talk about. It's filled with stories of my personal world, my professional world, and clients, and it helps you write your own visibility plan. And so I like it to be a guide for people to refer back to should they need more visibility in the future.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sue, for being here. And you definitely made the second episode and the first interview episode like a total pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful
Yeah.
to be here.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Boosting Business Breakthroughs podcast. Want to hear more business breakthrough ideas? I'll be back next week with a new episode to help you grow your coaching business. If you enjoyed listening, make sure you subscribe, leave us a rating, and tell all your coach friends where to find us. Head over to boostingbusinessbreakthroughs.com to learn more. Thanks for listening, and remember, your next business breakthrough is waiting for you.